Thank you, Chairman Liu, for your very kind introduction. I have known him, Chairman Liu, many, many years, and I have thought that he's a man of integrity, and whatever he said about me today seems to be very much exaggerated. So don't believe what he said. Just discount 1/30. And I'd like to really thank you for your warm welcome today. And I'd like to thank James Won, President of KACF, Ambassador Oh-jun, Permanent Representative of Korea to the United Nations. And I know that Consul General Kim Gi-hwan in New York. And I also met the Chairman Park Yong-man of Dusan Group from Seoul. And I have seen just briefly many distinguished guests are here from Seoul. And I'd like to thank you for your taking time to participate in this. And there are many, many distinguished guests whom I need to recognize one by one. Most importantly, while living in the United States, I have been benefiting a lot from some medical doctors who are here today. As you know, as time goes by, I'm getting older and older. You may expect that the spare parts in your body sometimes gets rusty. So I have been really benefiting from all distinguished doctors whose name I will not recognize here, but I know that there are many such distinguished doctors, including Dr. Kent, I think. I can recognize him. So I'd like to finish my speech before he takes the floor, because in any way, I'm very much grateful. I thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. 안녕하십니까, 여러분. I had the honor, as the chairman said, that almost at the end of my first year as a Secretary General, I had the privilege of addressing you together with Michael Bloomberg, then New York Mayor. Then 3 years ago, because of Hurricane Sandy, unfortunately, I had to cancel my participation. And even though it was quite belated, I apologize for that cancellation at that time. I'm coming from today, Saudi Arabia. In fact, this sandy storm might have prevented me from coming here again. I really tried my best to make my appointment this time. So that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a special pleasure to be with you once again to celebrate the Korean-American community. I belong to the generation of Koreans who watched a country, my motherland Korea, rise from the ashes of war to become a global economic powerhouse and a thriving democracy in a space of my lifetime. We also saw many Koreans, many distinguished and able Koreans come to the United States, and quickly rise to make most of all the opportunities this great country has offered. I have experienced that side of the story too. More than 25 years ago, I served as a Consul General in Washington, D.C. Then late 1970, I worked in the Korean mission to the United Nations. And since 2007, as you know, I have been living here for 9 years. My Sundays and weekends might not have been complete with reading New York Times, or rarely enjoy some James Bond movies. I like these action movies because when you are extremely tired or extremely in trouble, then it's better to forget everything before you begin tomorrow. So, I'm a big fan of this James Bond movie type, and especially, I'd like to, whether you believe it or not, I have appointed Daniel Craig as my goodwill ambassador to, I don't know whether your laugh means you are not believing me or not, but I'm telling you the truth. I appointed him last year as a UN Goodwill Ambassador to eliminate the landmines. He accepted and he came to my office. I was very nervous what to tell him. Later I realized that he also became very nervous. What should I tell to Secretary General? I was wondering, what should I tell him? I told him, look, you may have a license to kill, but I'm giving you a license to save. And I told him that you are 007, I'm 008. He was wondering why. I'm the 8th UN Secretary General. Then a few weeks ago, he sent me a card, Dear 008. I can show you if you want to see. This is a true story. So I'm 007. Call me 008 now. Ladies and gentlemen, joking aside, but it is also through my children and my grandchildren that I have seen the interplay between the Koreans and Americans, identities, and the wonderful combination of two, Korean heritage and American heritages. My children, half of their school years, they have gone to American schools, and they have immersed themselves in American life. When my son talks to me about the New York Mets, I share his joy that the New York Mets reached this World Series. But I also feel his pain when I say that, well, there's a next time, maybe next year. Like so many distinguished immigrant communities, Korean Americans have worked hard to find their meaningful spaces and balance in this great country. You are connected with your heritage and believe in the importance of passing it on to your children. But you are also pursuing lives and careers here at home in America. When I look around this room, I see the signs of great success, individual success, community success. When people are talking about Korean Americans, they immediately think about education, they think about honesty and very sincere people. You are respected, and I am very much proud of your success in this country. I see Koreans who are making mark in so many fields, different fields, from government, politics, parliamentarians, and businesses, to the arts, sports, and media. Years ago, there may have been just a handful of Korean American people who have been successful. But now, we have a room full like today, and I really congratulate and very much proud of your achievement. For example, Juju Chang of ABC News is here. I have known many Korean American successful businessmen, but John Kim of New York Life, and most importantly, Dr. Ken Jeong, and congratulations on. Just excuse me that I cannot recognize all of you, but you should be very proud of your achievement. I thank the Korean American Community Foundation for its wide-ranging work. I know you are conscious of the sacrifices and commitment of your parents and grandparents. I know you also have a strong commitment to giving back. Korean Americans are active patrons of the arts and of your alma maters. I welcome in particular your efforts to focus on the most vulnerable people. One yardstick of any community's strength is how it treats those people on the margins. The KACF is working to increase its support for Korean Americans in need, and I encourage you to fully support the Foundation's efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, as a person who has been witnessing Korea's rise in the world and your own successes in this country, and as the Secretary General of the United Nations, who have been witnessing the whole world's problems and successes, my message has been consistent to particularly young generation. Be a global citizen. Forget about your American passports or Korean passports. There are not national boundaries. National boundaries, because of this transformative development of technology, communications, and transportation, it has been losing meanings. For example, challenges such as climate change, public health, Ebola, or MERS, which happened in Korea, and armed conflict are all global in nature. In so many ways, national boundaries are losing their meanings. We all need to look beyond our boundaries now. And our immediate concern and surroundings will have to be considered in the broader picture of global concerns. You in this room are a people of achievement. As an accomplished person, you have a chance to show compassionate leadership. As a young generation, it's only natural that you have a strong passion. You want to be something, you want to achieve something. But if you do not have a compassion, on the other hand, then your passion may go sometimes the wrong way. Therefore, what I'm telling you is that try to balance passion and compassion at the same time. That's the way to become a global citizen. I'll count on you to do your part to help people who are trapped in conflict, who are hungry, who are sick, and who lack the basics of life that so many others take for granted. Being a global citizen means showing global solidarity with the billions of poor and vulnerable group of people. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in an era, definitely, of peril. Thus, this is an era of test for our global leadership. The global landscape is scarred by many multiple armed conflicts. I can just name all this, and at least 15 places where fires are burning at this time, at the same time. Just Syria, Yemen, South Sudan, Somalia, Mali, Central African Republic, Libya. I can go on like this way. We are living in a very, very difficult situation. That's why I have to run here and there. Sometimes I compare myself as a firefighter. Wherever there's a firefighter, I have to bring fire engine with water. There are nearly 60 million people who have to leave their homes, displaced or refugees. This is the largest number since the end of Second World War. In recent weeks, I have visited refugee camps or centers in Slovakia, Spain, and Italy. Before that, I have visited almost all the refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq, and Somalia. You name all the places. They are all coming from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, and many African countries. I'm continuing to urge world leaders to show their global solidarity. The number of migrants and refugees coming to European continents is almost uncontrollably many. But I'm asking them, I'm telling that this is not the crisis of numbers. This is a crisis of global solidarity. If you show your compassionate leadership with a strong global solidarity, we can solve this problem. Ladies and gentlemen, just briefly on the Korean Peninsula, tensions still remain high, and humanitarian situation in the north is very worrisome, troubling. People have great hopes for the intensified family reunions as agreed recently by the governments of two Koreas. At the same time, many other underlying issues, peace and security issues, reconciliations, still need our collective efforts for a solution. I continue to emphasize the need for dialogue and harmony and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula and throughout the region. I will spare no effort, as I have been repeatedly saying, to do whatever I can do as a Secretary General to help promote reconciliation, expand exchange and cooperation with the aim to ultimately realizing peaceful reunification of Korean Peninsula. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now celebrating 70th anniversary of the United Nations. There is still great distance to go in realizing the vision set out in the founding charter. As Chairman Liu has introduced, I was just 6 years old when Korean War broke out. Most of you may not remember how poor, how difficult, how terrible the situation was. We were almost on the brink of collapse as a country. At that time, the blue flag of the United Nations and United Nations soldiers, they all came and rescued us. And they provided all what we were wearing, we were eating, we were reading. That's why I'm now able to stand before you as a Secretary General, proudly. And I've been telling to the member state of the United Nations, as much as United Nations flag was a beacon of hope for me, for Korean people, I'm humbled to see that still so many millions of tens of millions of people, children, they regard UN flag as still the beacon of hope. After 70 years of the United Nations founding, after 60 years or 50 years of their independence, then I cannot but be humble as a Secretary General. How and what can I deliver? How differently can I do more than what I had received from the United Nations? For the past 15 years, the Millennium Development Goals, known commonly as MDGs, have generated most successful anti-poverty push in history. Now, with the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, this MDG clock will stop, and we will have another new vision, what is known as Sustainable Development Goals. It will be known, you will be hearing a lot of times SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals will be our touchstone coming 15 years until 2030. The year 2030 will be our new horizon. We have an opportunity to end hunger, save many people, millions of people who would otherwise die from preventable diseases. We will achieve 50-50 gender parity by 2030. And we will have a quality education for all the children around the world. The goals can help us build inclusive societies and address the roots of armed conflicts. This, we are going to build a peaceful society where everybody can live with human dignity and where all the people's human rights will be respected. In a world beset by so many challenges, it's a sign of hope that world's leaders adopted these Sustainable Development Goals as their visions for the future well-being of all humankind. Now, there is another important priority which we are now pushing very hard. That's climate change. You must have read, you must have heard, you must have felt, and you have been impacted by this climate change phenomenon. There have been some skeptics, some scientists, who do not believe climate change, but most of the whole world's scientists have made it plainly clear that climate change is happening and approaching much, much faster than one may expect. We have been experiencing extreme weather patterns. Hurricane Sandy was one of them. So for the first time in United Nations history, UN was flooded. The basement was flooded. This kind of extreme weather pattern you see every day when you watch televisions. That is why we are very much committed to have a very strong universal climate change agreement for the first time in the history in December in Paris. I'm working very hard to make it happen for humanity. In any way, there is a great opportunity to be seized, a chance to steer the world onto a path of low-carbon economy. Throughout my tenure, I have traveled all the front lines wherever and whenever I was able to see the impacts of climate change for myself. I have traveled starting from Antarctica, North Pole, Greenland, Iceland, Aral Sea, Lake Chad, and rainforest of Amazon rivers. And I can name so many places just to sound alarm bells to world leaders and business leaders and civil society leaders that we must address this before we regret for our succeeding generations. Now is the moment for world leaders. I'm asking them to act now without wasting any time. Then what we'll be doing next year, beyond 2015, in 2016, I think that's the year, the beginning of our implementing all these global visions, Sustainable Development Goals, and climate change agreement, which I hope will be adopted in December. And there are so many humanitarian crises now happening here and there. As I said, 60 million people. United Nations cannot do it alone at this time. Not a single country, including the United States, can handle this issue. Therefore, next year in May, I'm going to convene World Humanitarian Summit meeting in May in Istanbul, in Turkey. That will be the first time in the UN history. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, because you have stopped eating, I'll try to conclude. I'd like to share with you some of my personal thoughts about our life, my own life. When I was a middle school boy, my principal told us that you should keep your heads above the clouds so that you can see bright the blue skies. But making sure that your 2 feet are firmly grounded on the soil. That means have a big dream, big ideas, but be practical and realistic. My parents taught me to act with passion and compassion. I have already said. Confucius, this is a very famous maxim. Confucius teaches us that if you really want to govern the world, you have to make your family, then your country right. That in Korean or Chinese, 수신제가 치국 평천하. I think most of you must have heard from textbook or from your parents. I have tried to live and lead according to these maxims. I have been trying to lead by example. I wanted to show example by walking by myself. Otherwise, your people will not follow you. More recently, I have been thinking about water. People just regard water as just nothing. Seemingly, it has no power. It doesn't have anything. The Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, in Korean Chinese, Noja, taught us that the highest virtue is to act like water. In Chinese, this 상선 약수. You might have seen that I have made some calligraphy and presented it to President Obama in August. In that spirit, I have sought to nourish the needs of projects and ideas, just as water enriches the soil for the world's farmers. I have tried to keep moving towards our goals. When water is still, it stagnates. There is no progress. And I have tried to put out fires. The strongest power of water is it can overcome these fires. In our Oriental philosophy, there are 5 elements in our life, in our world. That is fire, water, wood, metal, and soil. This is Hwa, Su, Mok, Kum, To. We regard that these are 5 elements which consist of our world and our body. Our body consists of 60%, 70% of water. Then people regard that this is just water, weakest one, but there is nothing which can win over water, including fire. One very excellent, eloquent speakers, we call it fiery speeches, eloquent speeches. But this fire can be just put out by water. Like water, sometimes I get agitated and blocked. When that happens, I try to show some persistence and move smoothly around obstacles, just as river does when it meets a boulder. I will continue to draw inspiration from these and age-old teachings. But also I know that we must constantly renew our thinkings, new knowledge, new understanding, new technologies, and new ways of looking at the world. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I know that Korean American community is also bridging the old and new. Your achievement in this very competitive and dynamic society are a source of inspiration and pride to many people, not only to Korean people, but you are just example, shining example to many ethnic societies here, many other ethnic communities. Korean Americans are pointing the way for young and old alike in this country and around the world. Please know that you are looked at by so many people around the world, not only in this country. Then you will know how to do for yourself, for your family, for your community, and for your country. And I count on your continuing engagement with the global leaders, with the global visions and commitment to become a global vision ladies and gentlemen, let us work together to make this world better for all the people around the world. That's our moral responsibility living in this 21st century. And I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.